Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Since July of 2021, Jake and his friends have interviewed professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and many more. Who will they be chatting with in this week's interview? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. I am one of your co-hosts, Chris Bixby, and with me today is our host, Jake Deffinbaugh, and our other co-host, Matt Bingel. How are you guys?
Doing
I'm
great,
here.
Chris.
Hi.
How about you?
I'm here.
That's always good, and I'm doing good as well.
Good.
Awesome.
Who we got?
Well, today we have a singer-songwriter and musician who is a part of the group Ben Rudnick and Friends, responsible for songs such as A Frog Named Sam, Salamander, and many more. And we're here to talk about all of that. And here he is, Ben Rudnick. Ben, how are you?
Feeling nostalgic. But I'm good.
Awesome.
Awesome. Happy to have you here.
Happy to have you here.
Yes.
Yes. Well, to start this off, we know who you are, but for those who don't, would you care to introduce yourself a bit?
Oh, okay. Well, I've been playing what we call family music for, near 23, 24 years now. I grew up in New York City, Queens of New York. I live in Arlington, Massachusetts for quite a while. And that's where I started doing this, this music-y thing. I released the first album in 2000. It was named after my daughter, Emily. It became Emily Songs. I thought there'd be like Emily Songs 2 and 3 and 4, but that didn't really make any sense whatsoever once I started. But now we have 12 albums. We've played near 1,000 shows or more. I sort of lost track at some point. We're still here. We've got some, new songs. I'm thinking about putting an EP out, and we're booked for the summer. So the beat goes on, man.
Awesome. And I'm actually also in Massachusetts.
Yeah. We're
I'm
close people.
Yes, I'm in Cape Cod currently. It's very cold.
Yeah, I'm currently in Laguna Beach, California, and it's also very cold. It's been
Oh wow.
It's almost New England, like if you wait 10 minutes, it'll change.
Yeah.
Which it's not supposed to be. That wasn't how it was advertised.
Right.
Nope. So what was your background like and how did you grow up?
My background? Well, I grew up as a kid. I remember I think one of the first records I remember was was it Scheherazade or something like that? It was like some deep, looking at it now, it's probably like Phrygian scale, some like Arabic kind of thing. And we had the 78. My grandfather was a music guy. He kept trying. He had a trumpet and his teeth got bashed in. Then he had an accordion and his shoulder went out. But I remember him being real good at the accordion. And when I wanted a concertina, like Corporal Agarn's gypsy cousin, he brought me an accordion, which, as you might expect, that's a bit of a shock. But all things being equal, I eventually migrated to the piano and learned to read music, which is phenomenal for everybody. And then I picked up the guitar in high school, and I've been guitaring ever since. By playing all the time. I love guitars. They're great. I recommend them.
Definitely.
Nice. Awesome. So becoming a singer and musician yourself, what type of music or bands did you grow up listening to?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, where I grew up in Queens, New York, there was a pizza place right next door, and they had a jukebox there.
Okay, cool.
So basically, I didn't have any money to put in the jukebox, but the first song I ever remember really coming out of that thing was Revolution by the Beatles.
Oh, yes, great song.
Yes.
So now you're talking 1968, and and my head explodes going, what is that? Right. So, one Beatle thing led to the next. Ultimately, that's really how it all, for me, that's really where I kicked in. Right. So my first album ever was Sgt. Pepper. Right. That was my first album. The second album was Clapton's Layla. Right. So there was this guitar thread in there somewhere. Then the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead kicked in, and pretty much I really try and listen to other things. I really do.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty successful at it. I find I mean, old things, new things. Just the other day, well, poor David Lindley, may he rest in peace, but I tuned into his El Rayo X album. If you guys haven't heard it, I'll tell you, it is one of the happiest things I've heard, and I think it's awesome. But that was so old. So, so some stuff I just miss. I've been forced to listen to a whole bunch of sort of hip hop and rap lately, which
Oh,
after an hour or an hour and a half of that, it does get to me. I admit it. I don't really like to be screamed or sworn at, which is pretty much the baseline for that stuff. So
yeah,
I try not to do that to the people who listen to my music. But to
yeah,
each his own, really. To each his own. It's all good for me.
yeah, definitely. I'll have to check that song out that you mentioned
Yeah, we'll
after we're
definitely
done
have to
here.
check
Yeah,
it out, of course.
and and listening to this album El Rayo X, I'm like, oh geez, I hear some of the stuff that we did in it. And of course I never heard it. He went his path, I went mine. So to me, it's always interesting to hear things that hit me enough to like actually do stuff like it, and then find that it exists. It makes me very happy.
Mm.
Hmm. Very
Awesome.
interesting. Very interesting. So, how were you first inspired to get into the music business?
Well, I do have a computer science degree. I don't know if you guys have degrees in anything, but I have one of that. And I was in computer science for like 10 years working at the big companies. And every day pretty much, toward the end of that mission, all I wanted to do was go home and play the guitar. I mean, literally, and then I go home and I play the guitar till late at night, and then I'd be exhausted for work. And ultimately, my daughter was born, and really one of the parents needed to stay home because it got a little hectic with, rushing for takeout, the pickups, and all that.
Of
And it
course.
made a whole lot of sense for me to stay home. I like to cook. I really don't mind cleaning as long as nobody's watching me. I don't need to be viewed
Makes
while I'm
sense.
cleaning,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But I don't mind. I like things clean. So ultimately, my daughter turned about 4. Well, she turned 4, and my wife suggested strongly that I play some songs at her birthday party for all her pals. So I did, except I wrote like 3 songs, and I played those, and I played a couple of other ones that didn't upset me too much, and then my musical buddy and we went in and actually recorded those songs and a bunch of other songs we had already been playing and figured out and whatnot. And we literally sat across from each other in a recording studio, like, face to face, which is kind of real. That's
Yeah.
the real deal. And we played those songs, and we went back and re-recorded the vocals on top of that. And then the studio guy, he laid down harmonies. And then a buddy of mine, I'm not name dropping, he really is a buddy of mine, Jeff Bird. He's a guy, he plays in the Cowboy Junkies, right? So he's like the harmonica and
Oh,
mandolin and the Cowboy Junkies. Really nice guy. Great story how I got to him. But anyway, I went up there to Canada to hang out with him, and he recorded stuff on my albums. So ultimately I have this album that won all the necessary awards. All that noise, the Parents' Choice this and the whatever that. It was so important, I thought, at that time, and I guess it was, because it gives you credo. And then one
right.
album led to the next, and then we immediately, it's like, well, let's play shows, because that's what I was sort of doing anyway. And the first show we played, the first show we played some of this stuff: Sally Salamander, I Like Silver, I Like, Twist and Low. That was a big one. And the place lit up. I mean, we were as surprised as anyone, but the place really lit up. And the second show was in Lexington, on the town green there in Lexington, near the statue. You probably been there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
We had 2,000 people. Um,
Wow.
I mean, and we had to play everything we knew pretty much. And well, that'll get you playing again. That'll make you want to do another
Yeah.
album,
Of
make you want to
course.
do another gig.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
we've played Lexington every year since that. We've the only ones that
Oh, that's
they get
cool.
back
Oh,
every year.
wow.
It is cool. I mean, it's a center of American Revolution.
Yeah.
Yep.
setting up in a place like that is really fun. You get everybody coming. I mean, yes, we're supposed to play to kids, but then we launch into Big River by Johnny Cash, we launch into, whatever we want to launch into, we're literally able to launch into. And, obviously the band has gotten better over the years, and I've gotten better over the years. And I mean, we know a zillion tunes, and we play to whoever is in front of us, right? So if there's kids, we kind of snag them with, whatever song that might interest them. And then we go off and play Big River, but at some point it's just music. That's our perspective. It really is. We've played a few gigs where people, literally have said to me, where do you want us to line up the kids? And then my take is, don't line up the kids. I'm not a babysitter. I'm playing in a band with my guys, and this is what we do, and have fun. If you want to hear something, let us know. We got your back, but so it's just a hoot. I mean, we have fun, it's like, what's not to like? You're playing in a band,
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So can you talk about kind of like how, Ben Rudnick and Friends were assembled?
Yeah, oh, sure. Yeah. Well, my buddy, my right hand number one buddy is a guy named John Zivos, right? So I graduated from college school, got a job in high tech in New Hampshire, Digital Equipment Corporation, which you may have heard of, but anybody, it's defunct. It's been absorbed by like HP and Compaq and whatever. But I walked into a music store looking for guitar lessons, and in Manchester, New Hampshire, and I ran into John Zivo, and they gave me John, right? So I went to my lesson, and in this tiny room was this very large guy, and that was John. And he had this backwards poster of Jerry Garcia, which I had as a kid in my room. Like literally, it's left-handed Jerry, which I mean, I really had never seen it anywhere else, and he had it in his little room. He also had gone to the same college I went to. Then once we started traipsing down over time, we started, we realized that our mothers had brothers that had passed. I mean, in a bizarre way. It was like we had all these like so anyway, he's like a Greek guy from Manchester. I'm a Jewish kid from New York, and we've been basically playing together ever since we met. I mean, the first thing he suggested was, let's do a duo. So we did that, and we were stone dove for a little while, and we played duo shows. And then we had a bluegrass band. And then ultimately, as soon as I start anything, I call John, and he's there with me to this day. The bass player and was the guy who had the recording studio. So he can harmonize to anything. He could play bass. He played bass and harmonies on that first album. And then we needed a drummer. So John had got his music degree up at UNH. So he knew a drummer. And that was the core band for about 7 years. And then we had a friend of my wife's and mine, who was a brilliant piano player. He ended up coming in to just lay down some tracks on one of the albums, Fun and Games. And the whole organ piano thing didn't work, but he said, I have my accordion in the car, which goes right back to the whole accordion thing. And he ended up playing with us. I think from 2002 to 2009, he was with us. So it was only 2 years without him, really. And he could play one note, and he was hysterical. So we were literally this 5-piece band that could do anything with a mandolin, a guitar, an accordion, drums, and bass. And we had sky-high vocals. And, parents would thank us. People would follow us around. I mean, it really doesn't get any cooler than that. And we were doing exactly what we wanted. There was nothing we were doing that we didn't want to do. And the shows got bigger and bigger. Ultimately, we now have had John's son Chris on bass, and Chris is like, he's lined up for his master's, his PhD. I'm sorry, if he finishes his thesis. Our drummer started having kids, so now we haven't, it's changed a little bit, but the core of John and myself, we're still the core of it. If we go out as a duo, we go out as John and I, and we did that quite a bit through the years. Just,
that's nice.
Here and there.
That's really nice.
Wonderful.
It's pretty cool. It's music the way you want it to be, when you want it to be that way. I mean, you're in the summer and it's 90 something degrees and you got to set up your gear. Is that fun?
Yeah.
Well, maybe. Doing it 5 nights a week, maybe. Well, at some point you do have your guitar in your hand and you are playing stuff and everything's just exactly perfect or getting close, and and all the heat goes away, and all of a sudden time drops, and it's just fun. That's why people do this stuff, that's why they can get away with paying us so little, because we love doing it so much.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So do you have any favorite albums or songs you've done as Ben Rudnick and Friends?
you know um Well, yes and no. I mean, I don't, you guys don't have kids, I bet. So, but they're like, as far as I can tell, they're like kids, right? Each kid is special in their own way. They really are. You're gonna love them, but they give, and you got to meet your kid where they are, right? Because you can't demand that your kid do something. I know my parents couldn't demand that I do, something. They can ask, and if they ask politely, odds are pretty good. But the albums are sort of like that. At some point, they take you down the path, and I will listen to them every now and then, and it just really amazes me, like, how much stuff we have done and how much work each album is. I mean, do you guys, I don't know if you make music, but every decision that you have to make in an album, and then you've made all those decisions, and then you have to mix it, and then you have to I mean, and then you have to listen to in your car and your phone, and I mean everywhere. It's work, but it's fun work. So when I go back and listen, I am amazed at how, like, you take an album like Grace's Bell is one of our albums. It was not a popular album, but I mean, it holds up over time for me. And I listen to it, and I'm just amazed with the broad scope of stuff in it, and how it's like a whole, right? So that's the neat thing I think about great albums like Sergeant Pepper, or Layla, that whole album,
Yeah.
or Songs from the Wood by Jethro Tull. I mean, they have they suck you in, and now you're living in that world. Our albums have that quality, right? So, I mean, I believe that. And then parents tell me, I mean, I met parents on Cape Cod and Kennebunkport. I meet them everywhere, and they're like, "Thank you. We were able to listen to Blast Off endlessly, and we don't mind. We like it." I've met parents who tell me they put on the albums when the kids aren't in the car, and that's a wonderful compliment. But to my ear, it's the same thing. I mean, actually, I ran out of Grace's Bell albums, and I had to buy a couple on the internet.
Oh, wow.
When I finally got it, I'm like, all right, well, let's put it on and listen to it. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is awesome. And they all have certain guests, and they all have certain vibes, and from album to album. But I'll tell you, we've played 19 or 18 Christmas shows, and at some point we did a holiday CD. It's called Here Comes Santa Claus. So I wrote one Christmas song, and I recorded a bunch of others, and John sang some, and Arnie sang one, whatever, instrumentals. And every year when the Christmas show was coming, we actually had to learn the songs again. And every year that album just hits me as like, what a great album this is. I mean, it's really fun, and then you get to do the holiday show, and it's a special thing, so yeah. I mean, I don't know, I don't have any favorites, but every now and then something really hits me as cool.
Yeah, one of my favorite songs is probably A Frog Named Sam.
Yes.
That's a great one.
I know. And you know what? And obviously there's a lot of work that went into it. I mean, that's an art piece, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we used to play it live all the time. Then the band sort of, changed, and you really have to be practicing that song, right? Or you have to know it. And
Mhm.
so when it actually was like in the top something on Sirius, they had their top 13 or some crazy thing. We were actually
Wow.
going to a gig in like Philadelphia somewhere, and we heard it on the radio, and it was
Oh,
really
wow.
cool.
Oh,
That song was played in it's like on Arabic Air or Emirates Airlines, because you get the BMI thing, you get the printout of where the song is played and who's paying you 9 cents and whatnot, and it's really gone around the world, right? And we used to play it everywhere we went, but it's set in time, right? I mean, we do it live, and it changes, and it has the vibe, and everybody's boom booming, but that recording was, I mean, geez, what a piece of art that thing is, right? All the stuff coming in and out, and the harmonies, and the accordion, right? The accordion is the the little Arabic-y thing going in there. The Middle Eastern melody he just started doing that. Yeah, so I agree. That's a great tune. It's a great recording. The whole album is great,
Yeah, that's a great
Mhm.
one. I'm kind of curious, how did that song come about?
Good question. Okay, and then there's a reason why it came about, right? So, I used to ride my bike a lot, like a lot, and that was my thing. And and then when you're on the bike, you hear melodies, and you got to get home so you can. I mean, there's a slew of songs like that. And Sam was one of those. And I don't know if you guys hip to Mark Knopfler at all. You follow Knopfler, Dire Straits. Oh, that's
Dire,
another.
Dire Straits I've heard of.
Yeah, Dire Straits, right? So when
Mhm.
they got so big, they couldn't go anywhere anymore. Knopfler kept on going with his own stuff. So he has an album called Kill to Get Crimson. And there's a song on Kill to Get Crimson called Punish the Monkey. I know this is seriously derivative, but you asked. So anyway, I was thinking, the monkey. I was thinking, well, what can I use? And it ultimately it turned into a frog, which turned into Sam, which turned into I had this little 4-track recording thing. It was like this, and you could plug into it and create a beat pattern. So I actually recorded the song on this little thing, which is not something I did a lot, but I needed to because it called to me. So like record me. So I did, and that's really where the song comes. So if you listen to Punish the Monkey, you won't hear a frog named Sam. That's all I'm saying. But I did. It's a superpower.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, what was it like getting to record the music videos for your songs?
Well, to me, I mean, it's magic.
Yeah.
you get to do what you hear in your head or think you hear in your head, and then you get these brilliant people to like, help you execute that, follow down that path. I mean, it's just great. I mean, we did it multiple ways, right? We used to do it like the first time John and I just sat down and we recorded everything, like everything. We just sat down, we did it over a couple of days. The second time we did it, we didn't do that. We did it more the layered approach, even we played as much together as we could, and that's so these guys are coming in, they're hearing, I mean, there's so much to my mind varied and original stuff on the recordings. I mean, we had to make it up, right? That's the whole point. You get to make stuff up and then see it come to fruition. So there's a lot of choices, there's a lot of words, but ultimately, I would do all my stuff, and that's fun, right? So I get to be a rock star sometimes. Like, I don't know if you hip to the love is a superpower thing, but the guitar solo in there was a stretch, at that time, and I had it figured out. I went in, I recorded it like twice, and I thought I hit it, but then I had to record it like another 100 times because my engineer was trying to yank this like something special out of me, but I had already done it like the first time, right? So it's a process. But one of my happy days are when I've done all my vocals. The most of the basic tracks are there, and then somebody comes in to do harmonies. So I always called it harmony day, because I
Yeah.
get to hear, it's like the harmonies, like just it's like a flower growing, and figuring all that out on the fly is just a really neat thing. I mean, a couple other things that we got to do is I had some really cool guests,
Oh
starting
wow.
on the first album with Jeff Bird from the Junkies. On the second album, I got Margot Timmons from the Cowboy Junkies to sing a song that I had written,
Oh
some
wow,
years
that's
before.
cool.
It's really cool. So the last song on Fun and Games, Margot Timmons is singing, and I went up there for that second album as well. And me and Jeff went to we were supposed to go to Margot's, summer, winter, outside of Toronto place, but it snowed too much and we couldn't get in there. So we met her in Toronto. She sang the song through in one take, like Margot,
Wow.
and she's just phenomenal, And we also had on Grace's Bell, we had a guy named Buddy Cage play pedal steel. Now, Buddy Cage was on Dylan's album. Oh, geez, classic Blood on the Tracks. I mean, this is Buddy Cage. Like he took Garcia's pedal steel literally and played in the New Riders of the Purple Sage for the rest of his life, And I sent him a couple songs down in New York, and he, I mean, so it's exciting, right? I take these VHS tapes, I send them down there, they send them back, Buddy's all over it. And then when we had the 10th anniversary show, he comes.
Oh
He's
wow.
on stage with us,
Oh,
Oh
So
my
there's like
gosh.
I know. So on stage is Buddy Cage from Canada, Jeff Bird from Canada, another woman named Sue Smith, who's a good friend of mine. She's a star in her own right, you know. And we have this like 10 people on stage for the 10th anniversary with a horn section. I mean, it's so much fun, right? Who else do we have? We had there's a guy named Kenny Kosek. If you guys are hip to the Garcia band in '87, Garcia played acoustic, so the acoustic Jerry Garcia acoustic band. There's a great album,
Okay.
and Kenny Kosek was the fiddle player. So
Mhm.
I needed a fiddle player, so I literally emailed Kenny Kosek, because who else you're going to have play fiddle? He emailed me back in 10 minutes. Me and my engineer Andy, we went down there to Manhattan, up his fourth floor walk up, and we recorded Kenny Kosek, who could not have been a nicer man. You know, he was so interested and engaged, and you know, so that's all to me, that's a major compliment that these guys care enough. And then when we go down and play in Manhattan, I call Kenny. I'm like, hey man, you want to come play? And Kenny, so there's somewhere out there, there's a video of us playing Twisting Low with Kenny Kosek, and he's
Wow.
doing this pizzicato stuff. And I mean, me and John, you know, we just look at each other like we couldn't have been happier, you know, that we were on stage with Kenny Kosek, and he's doing something that we never suggested he do. I had just sent him the music and he was paying attention, you know. So those are the moments that just like, I don't know. I guess you can tell it's kind of cool, but
Yeah,
you have to go through to get to it, right? You got to do all the albums, you got to do all the
definitely.
Right. Yeah.
you gotta want to, is really what I'm saying. 12 albums and all the videos and 1,000 shows and other little bands. You have to really want to, and not mind the noise that comes along with it, you know,
Definitely.
or
Yeah.
let it go, one or the other, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now on the subject of a frog named Sam, there's also a like a its own like musical version. Can you talk
Oh
about how
yeah,
that kind of came about?
yeah. Well, I was reading Pete Townshend's book, right? And in Pete
Okay.
Townshend's mind, right, everything is like more than what it is, right? So, you know, Tommy wasn't just the thing, it was a movie, you know, then it was a play, you know, and then Quadrophenia came along and it wasn't just, you know, I mean, he sees a whole production. So I saw the Who, you know, when they finally got back together, do Quadrophenia, you know, and then there's, you know, it just goes on and on for Townsend. So I'm thinking, well, why not me? You know, so I talked to my friend Sue, and you know, up in Canada with Jeff, and she recommended a playwright friend of theirs who was actually in Australia, and she wrote the play. So, and she said, "Oh, well, I'm going to need a couple of songs, you know, for this." So I wrote the songs. There's a couple of or two or three new songs on that soundtrack album, specifically for the pieces that she needed. And that's so I have a music book, you know, you can turn the pages, that a friend did. I have a play. I got to see it performed before COVID hit, by a local children's theater, and I'll tell you, there were kids from, excuse me, kindergarten through seventh grade, and it was just phenomenal. I mean, the songs held up, the story was fun, the kids were adorable. They didn't have much money to put on the production, but I mean, it held up, you know, and the music held up, you know. And then as I'm playing out that summer, you know, these kids would just run up to me and hug me, you know, because I was Ben and they were in the play, and they'll, do you remember me? And I'm like, yeah, I remember
Uh-huh.
you, you know. So yeah, there's this play out there that people can do, and you know, that's another bit of work, getting people to do it. Right, you know, so I was all over it for a while and it worked out, but you know, I don't really like spending as much time on the phone now as I used to. So if you know anybody that wants to do a play, please have at it, you know. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So another one of your songs, Sally Salamander, was turned into an illustrated story. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
those images are fantastic, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
yes, so
The artwork's brilliant. I think it's
it's
really
Yes.
brilliant. It's really good. You know, I look at it, and then again, that's one of those things where somebody took the time to like bring something I've done to life, or lifer, more lifer, you know.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so they used to have these like well, before I started, when I started, there was the Raffi thing, and there was there's a couple of these kid things, but I really took the cue from Grisman and Garcia, right? John and I always felt like we kept going where they stopped, for the kids, the not for kids only thing. And I actually had one of those the cover of that album was a painting by Jerry.
Oh wow.
And actually there were 500 of them, and I had one, and the house burned down. So that
Oh.
I was like, bummer.
Ah.
So the question, Sally, right. So I was at one of these conferences, and they had them in Brooklyn, and they used to call them Stink Fest. I could not believe that they called it this. Anyway, I went to the first couple, and then they changed it to KindyCom or some crazy thing like that. And while I was at the second one, I met these guys, these wonderful hysterical brothers from New York City somewhere, and they had this vision to like take songs and do the images and illustrations, and then you can go through, and then in the app, like they had an app for your iPhone or iPad, you could play drums along, or you could play keyboards along. So
Oh, wow.
the song actually had to have no minor chords because their software couldn't handle minor chords. So we re-recorded Sally Salamander for that to take out the one minor chord that was in the song. And which was fun, right? Because we got to redo it. And then they came up with the images, and their business didn't really take off. But they let me use the images. They sent me all the images, and they're just beautiful,
They
So
really are.
that's the story with that. The other images that I thought were really good was the Love is a Superpower video. I mean, that guy,
yeah.
he had done a lot of videos for another family, really more geared towards little kids. And so I sought him out, and he was in England, and I told him I really more had of a Peter Max vision, than like the Beatles kind of Peter Maxy thing than
Mhm.
The stuff he had done for other folks, and he went with it, and so some of those stills, like the heart like flying at you through space. There's some really cool stuff. I mean, the only thing I really don't like in that whole video is for some reason he felt the need to draw me. Why would he need to draw me? I told him don't do that, but he's at some point everybody's an artist, and you got to let them go where they want. It's like
Right,
when
yeah.
people come in to play stuff over your music, you
Mhm.
kind of if you've chosen them, they're going to have something to say, and you got to let them say it.
Yeah,
So
you
it's
got
like
to let them show their creativity.
exactly, and that's part of the album thing, managing that, letting people be who they are, and then some guidance, of course, and here's what I'm looking for, but
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's where there's so much magic there. It's so much magic to see people, really bright, smart, intelligent, talented people come up with stuff. I mean, I love it.
Aw.
It's the
Uh,
whole is the whole is definitely greater than some of my parts, without question, right? It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a band.
Yeah.
Definitely. So now moving on to the touring aspect, do you have any favorite touring locations?
Oh yeah. Well, Lexington. I mean, geez, we, yeah. I mean, that's part of the neat thing about what we do, right? Is we're not playing, these like horrible bars where, well, of course you can't smoke anymore, but you used to be able to. And when we played in bars for whatever, you come out of there, you stink like cigarettes. Your guitar stinks like cigarettes. Your gear smells like the car smells like. I mean, we don't ever really do that. We're in town greens. I mean, beautiful locations, all around New England. It's like the New England summer concert thing, where we play so many shows. I mean, that's literally a New England thing. It really doesn't exist as much elsewhere, so we've gotten to do that. So favorite places, I mean, oh geez, the Hat Shell in Boston. We played the Hat Shell 10 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to talk cool being on the Hat Shell, and at some point, that like whoever was introducing us, he referred to us as family. I mean, that to me is like a good day, right? I mean, being called family. Now, okay, so the family of the orchestra on the 4th of July, I'm sure they clean the the pollen. for our side of the family, they don't really clean the pollen, but it doesn't matter, it's like, yeah, we're family, it's okay, so but that's a great space. We've got to go. After Sam came out, I got us to Colorado. We got to play in Breckenridge. We got to play at a theater in Loveland, Colorado, which was just, I mean, A, you're in Colorado, and B, the theaters are beautiful. So we got to play we got asked to do a Jewish center up in Michigan. So we all get on the plane. The rider said we like M&Ms and coffee. So we had M&Ms and coffee. But this place, it was literally the parting of the Red Sea in these teeny tiny tiles, and we were in the middle of it, and they had these giant stacks of speakers on either side. That was kind of fun, and we played Hava Nagila. I mean, and the rabbi sang with us. So that was, I don't know, I've got a million of them. I mean, I could go on, but they all take on their specialty when you are there, right? And when the guys show up. I mean, it used to be when when we first started, the guys would come to my house. They all kind of land at my house. And it sort of felt like, remember in The Hobbit when all the dwarves came to Bilbo's house?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like every time. It's like, oh, okay, we're going on an adventure, and without being like hokey, but that was it. We had this little thing, and we'd set up someplace cool, and we'd do our little thing, come to town. Maybe our name was on, a banner or something. So yeah, kind of each one is good.
Awesome.
So, so do you have any fun or interesting stories from performing on the road?
Okay. Well, yeah, I got some. I'll tell you, one of the first places we went was Albany, New York, which isn't exactly what you'd call, a Mecca, but it is a capital, and there's stuff there. Anyway, there was a woman there whose name was Rochelle Rudnick, which is my sister's name. Okay. And anyway, she saw my name and decided she needed to have us come, to be there for her kid's school. So I'm like, sure, so we go out there, and we had to stay because it's far enough away from Boston that we had to stay. And we stayed in this really chintzy hotel, I mean, it's like what we could afford kind of thing. But we were so happy. We were so happy. We were on the road. We were touring. And in the morning, we opened up the blinds, and there's like, we're looking at the trash dump and, the dumpsters, and we could not have been happier. We thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, so I mean, that's the level of some stuff. Other things, when we were in Colorado, we played a bunch of shows at the beginning of the week, and then the band left, and then John and I stayed to do duo shows at the end of the week. So we got to go through, the national park both ways. We got to go through, and then we stayed at the hotel based on The Shining was based on.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
We stayed
wow.
at that hotel, and then we drove back through the park in the other direction, to get back to Colorado Springs. We met the oh gosh, they were the ones that sang Aiko all day. Oh, who are they? I forget their names, but we met them. The Buttercups. Isn't it that what it is? Isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Maybe not the Buttercups.
Okay.
It's something the
Maybe something.
Dixie Cups or something like. Anyway, but their pictures on the website on the photo page. We met them at a rest area in New Jersey, and we got this, and we figured out who they are pretty quick because they all had the T-shirts and stuff, and we got photos with them. Another time we were playing. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember any of the Life is Good festivals in on the green there in
I think so,
Boston.
yeah.
Yeah, well, we used to play them all the time, a couple times a year, and
Oh,
one
that's
time
cool. Wow.
it was cool. One time, and they paid you good money. It was, plus they had gear, right? You didn't have to
Mhm.
like bring your own gear. It was fun. And we were there on a pumpkin fest. They used to have these pumpkin fests, right? So we were playing, and the Mayor Menino, do you remember Mayor Menino? He was the mayor for like 20 some years in Boston. He was supposed to come on before us, but there was a bomb scare. So
Oh.
right. So they're like, okay, well, you guys go on. And we're like, okay, there's a bomb scare, but it's okay for us to go on, not Menino. So anyway, we go on and play a bunch of songs. And then at some point, this pumpkin literally blows up, like this, pumpkin into the eye. It was a pumpkin bomb. I mean, it was I don't know what it was, but it didn't do any real destruction other than to the pumpkin, right? So then we're standing on stage, and here comes Mayor Menino, so now he's using my microphone, right? So again, on the website, there's a picture of me and Mayor Menino, I'm beaming like the cat, with like my orange turtleneck, because it's Halloween. It's a pumpkin fest, and there's Mayor Menino doing his Mayor Menino thing. I don't, there's just like stuff just rolls and rolls and rolls. It's really fun, and you never really know what to expect, which is kind of fun. So more to come. We're not done by any stretch.
Definitely.
And yes, you're actually right. The guys met the Dixie Cups.
Dixie Cups. It was the Dixie Cups.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you go. Because I checked the website, so there you go.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I know. People think I make this stuff up, but I don't. I guess my job is to make stuff up, right? But I don't need to really make up anything, because everything is so bananas. I mean, it's so like I just turn around and some wild thing is happening. It's like, oh gosh, okay, that's normal. So yeah, it's just basically it's a matter of maintaining the middle and breathing.
Yeah,
definitely.
So this ought to be interesting. What are some of your fondest and most favorite fan reactions you've received over the years?
I'll tell you, man. We were playing in Andover, Mass, right? In Andover, Mass, we were able to play like every other year, right? Because that's just how their series runs. And they have this awesome gazebo that's like 13 feet high, and nobody plays in the gazebo. You have to play below it. And it's this, 180-degree town green in front of the town hall. And all these New England towns are just fantastic, right? And at the time on Grace's Bell, we recorded Somewhere Over the Rainbow and What a Wonderful World. I mean, literally like we had a nice reggae tinge to it. I kind of jerried it up at the end. I mean, it had our imprint on it, but it was definitely, I thought, a good idea because I loved the version. We would get to play it. Maybe it would help us get a little bit more known. But we used to play it all the time, And as we were playing it, on the sun's going down, everything's perfect. The band sounds great. It's not blisteringly hot. And this couple gets up and starts waltzing to it, and again, John and I look at each other and we're like, this is it. This is the whole point. They're not kids. It doesn't matter if they were kids. It doesn't matter if they're old folks, but they're people. And they're just right in front of us. And we're here now. We know the next chord, I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. We've had times where we played in Cape Cod. There's a theater down there. Oh gosh, I'd have to remember where it was, but it was indoors. It's an indoor theater, and we played there, and the place was packed. I mean, it was like a holiday, like a vacation week show. And I had just seen Amadeus. Did you guys?
Okay.
And there's one scene where he's there playing, and the whole place is just like, I mean, they're high on whatever they're high on, but this place was just like that. I mean, the whole place was just like people. I mean, nobody was falling off balconies and stuff, but it felt like it could happen, And we're just standing there like, oh my God, who can believe this? Another time, here's a good one. John and I got asked to play a school in Dorchester, not Dorchester, Roxbury. Right. So Roxbury, it's just John and I as a duo. And we get there, and this is the oldest school in America, right? This is the first public school in America, literally, and we drive down there, and the principal meets us on the sidewalk, and she says, look, 80% of these kids are, have like trauma, because they've seen trauma, right? This is the deal. People are getting hurt around them, and 80% of them have post-traumatic stress. And we're like, and this is before COVID. Clearly, it's probably in the O's, somewhere in the O's. And John and I set up, and it was the school cafeteria was the old auditorium, right? So you've probably seen these auditoriums. They're kind of cool. They're wood, but so many schools had to turn them into cafeterias, right? So this was that, and the place, and the reason we were there was because Apple had donated computers, like a computer lab, and they were opening the computer lab, and they had us as part of the celebration. So we start playing, and literally, and also none of these kids had really ever seen live music. That was another thing that she had told us. So we start playing, and instantly it was like the Beatles. We felt like the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl. Anything we
Wow.
did, these kids would just scream at the top of their lungs, and they didn't really know us. I mean, I don't know if we were their kind of music, but it was just the situation. And I'll tell you, that's eye-opening, And then literally we were 18 minutes from Arlington, where I live in Massachusetts. By the time we left there at 10:30 or 11 o'clock, there was no traffic, and we were home within 20 minutes. So the world that those kids lived in, and 20 minutes away where I live, I'll tell you, that informed a lot of what we did after that, right? Because I mean, you know that exists, but you don't know that exists until you actually go in and see it, so that's really helped us out. I think that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
great answer.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
so over the years, you've won a total of 7 Parents' Choice Awards for your work making family music. How does it feel to you that the music you and your band have made have become so successful?
Oh, well, it's nothing but well, of course, we were going for world domination, so we fell a little short. But I don't know, it's the biggest compliment you can imagine, that somebody's listening to your music. I mean, it really is. I mean it for a long time there. I got to put out music, and it was, reviewed, listened to, played. They send me money because they were playing the music, which is really helpful for the next album, right? I mean, it's sort of this like kind of cycle thing. um oh no, it's a great compliment, and then I mean, it's like, I always looked at it as like the game of chess, right? You release an album, you do everything you can with it, and then hopefully it enables you to do the next album, so we would do the next album and people would be excited. I mean, how cool is that? So just to know, I mean, you guys, I don't know if you all came on board with Sam or where you got my name from, but I mean, it's a huge compliment. Honestly, I mean, thank you. But that's how we feel all the time, right? So, yeah, it's great, and I get to put my little influence on people, I mean, I don't know if you guys are hip to like the I got a new friend thing, so that on Blast Off, there was Blast Off, and then I got a new friend, and I got a new friend basically from my daughter Emily, because she kept telling me about, anytime we went to a park, there was a potential new friend, literally there
Aw.
was, I'm like, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be an alien, who knows, and that, I mean, so I got to do that, and then like, and you were asking about Sally Salamander, right? So at some point we did Sally Salamander, and that's, to John and I, that's like the quintessential Ben Rudnick and Friends too, right? It's just, I mean, it's got a perfect guitar lick that goes throughout the song. John
Yes.
John plays the chop, so it's pseudo bluegrass, but not really. It's sort of semi reggae bluegrass. That's like where our filter comes into play, and you can't make that up. That just has to be in you. It's a great story. It's got a neat chord progression. So that came along, but then the next album came along. I was like, well, let me write the next song, right? So that's when I wrote I had the vision for the Juicy Black Fly, right? So those two songs, literally, you can play them right next to each other. It's the same key, it's the same chord progression to end Sally and start the Juicy Black Fly. So I get to like do that, and influence kids. I mean, other stuff like, I mean, I try and influence, it's more of a suggestion than a hardcore. I mean, so much of the music that surrounds what I do, it seems like it's a little heavy-handed, to me. And that's why I don't write music like those songs, right? But I
Right.
get to write like Drink It Up, Drink It Up and Take It With You. Is another one I wrote for Emily, right?
Uh-huh.
Basically it's not a kid's song, but it is a kid's song. Kids
Mhm.
would ask us to play this, and there's just so many like that, where there's a subtle message that if you're listening enough over time, it sort of sinks in. It gives you empowerment. I mean, that was a big part of what I was trying to do, is like let kids know that, things are cool. You're okay. Keep going. there's a song on Fun and Games. One of my favorites is Sun Showers. That's sort of like a deep cut. But basically it's like, yeah, things aren't going so okay, but it's just sun showers. It's a passing storm, right? I mean, you'll be okay. That was really important to me. And it still is. I mean, the songs for the next set, there's like, I've got like 4 or 5 songs. One of them's like New World in Sight, right? That's what it's called. I have a video for it. It's on the videos, but it's not on any album. It's a single. New World in Sight is just like, look, we can get together and make changes because of, you guys have seen what's going on. I've seen what's going on. And I'd rather have, kids know that they can come together and help each other instead of being on opposite sides of any fence, right? That's a big message that seems like a lot of grown-ups don't get, So if I can, sort of, infiltrate a kid's mind with this gentle, kind, helpful message, I'm on board. If that's what they put on my gravestone, all the better,
Yeah.
So, or Shine Upon, that's another song that we have there, a video for, but it's not on an album. I didn't write that one, but the guy who did write it is really grateful that I recorded it because it's a whole lot different than his version, and that says, look, everybody's welcome here, period, and that's not really a message that people get all the time. So
Yeah,
if I can do that,
it's true.
Awesome,
Definitely. Yes.
So do you have any memorabilia or anything from your music work that you'd like to show or talk about?
I don't, because I'm in Laguna Beach, California right now, and I live in Arlington, Massachusetts. So I don't. I'll show you my dog.
That's fine. That's fine.
Can you see Lucy?
If you like unblur your back.
Oh yeah.
Thank you a little bit.
I would have to figure out how to do that, but the next song's called "Hanging with Lucy." We drove across the country twice, 3 times now, and Lucy's the thing. There's Lucy. Let's see. So let's see if you can. Anyway. Yeah. So we're gonna drive back across the country. So like the song I just finished up, last week. It's called "Hanging with Lucy." I get to be a rock star. I got rock star people playing with me.
That's awesome.
I just gotta figure out how to. There'll be a little video. Lucy has a Instagram page. Hanging with Lucy.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
That's
So no, I don't really have any. I mean, I have a ton of stuff at home. There's one kid wrote the Ben book. So I have this the book of Ben, which is just like, okay,
Oh, that's interesting. Wow.
People send you stuff, and it's like,
Yeah,
I can't get rid of it.
Like, I can't get rid of it. I have to keep it.
Yeah, I do. The stickers that we have, like, through time, we've had like these little round. I love giving away stickers to kids because I love stickers. I love stickers as a kid. I love stickers now. So I got my artist Bob to make up stickers, and we just give them away at shows. Just give them away. And at some point I had the great idea of putting the website on it, right? Because websites, so those stickers has evolved through times, different colors, different characters, different this, different that. Now we have, I think the best sticker yet is probably on the website on some of the show pages. I know, actually, I think Bob put it on as one of the big splash screens on the front page. It's on Trip, from the play, our alien buddy Trip from Blast Off. And seeing as he or she took on a persona in the play, I got the sticker of Trip, So I give those away every chance I get. And I really wish I brought a whole bunch here to California, because everywhere I go, there's like walls of stickers, and I've got a sticker too, why not my sticker? So.
definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. So overall, what do you enjoy most about your work in music business?
It's just playing with the guys. Is when we're ready to kick into the show, and maybe it's gotten along enough and we're loose, and everything feels just exactly perfect. We never quite know what we're going to do or where we're going to go, right? And if we there was times where we went down to play at Sirius XM, right? So they invited us to go down there, and we went down and played, and we played everything super fast because we were kind of super pumped up, and we didn't take a breath. But it worked out, but and then we had gigs around that show, and the four of us were in a van for like 2 or 3 days straight, right? Just like compact in this van, listening to the Grateful Dead 24/7, because that's what John and I wanted to do. And we had a gig and we got back on Saturday night, and we had a show on Sunday morning, up in Ipswich at Appleton
Oh,
Farms.
okay.
And it's beautiful up there. I mean, it's September, and it's just magic. It really is like outdoors, perfect, crisp September morning kind of thing. And we had been playing so much, and we had been so packed into this van, we were free. We just exploded. Just like the explosion of music, and we don't know what we're doing, but we can't wait to do it kind of thing. You can't really beat that.
Right.
You just can't.
Right.
You guys play in bands? I mean,
I know I have friends who I have a good friend of mine who is in a band.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
See, the thing is, it really helps to get paid. It keeps everything going. You can't, at some point, you can't keep doing it anyway, unless there's just enough money for the machine. I mean, I got to pay my guys. In my head, I got to pay my guys, but once all that's taken care of, really, it's just you get to play music with your buddies, and once you're in a band for, I don't know, 10 minutes, you realize how special the Beatles were, right?
Yeah.
That they were able to stay together for so long under so much, intense scrutiny, and drugs, and the genius that they came up with, like time after time, and then you see them on that on that special that Peter Jackson did, and you're like, what fun those guys were having for like 35 minutes or whatever it was. It was freezing, they were scared, or some of them were scared, I mean, and yet once they started, you can see how much fun it was, right? And as long as you can keep it going to get into that space, then it's worthwhile to keep going.
Definitely. So now so we've talked a lot about your work in the past, but I'm kind of curious what you and the band are working on now.
Well, now, I'll tell you, at some point along the way, I took a workshop with a guy named Jorma Kaukonen. You guys know who Jorma Kaukonen is? You ever hear of the Jefferson Airplane?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like a White Rabbit and all that. And then anyway, Jorma and his bass player Jack Casserly left the Airplane. They started a band called Hot Tuna, which is like a finger picking blues band. And at some point, I went and took some workshops with Jorma, and we started a band called Don't Tell Jack, who's Jorma's bass player, Jack Cassidy. And I told Jack, and Jack hugged me. So we did that for a while, for like 4 or 5 years, and that's a lot of work. That's like a whole nother style of music. So we played along that path for a while, and I really have never stopped doing that, because once you start doing it, it's a little bit of a thing. But being here in California, one of the guys I met at that workshop, he has a studio here, so we recorded, the song "Hanging with Lucy," and that's enough songs to do an EP. So I'll probably do an EP. I literally have been booking shows for the last couple of days. You can look at the show calendar on the website there, benrudnick.com, and we've got shows coming up. We'll have more shows than that coming up. I'll hopefully put out this EP with some cool artwork, and talk to my publicist and do another round of people remembering who I am, or getting hip to who I am. I mean, the thing with our music is, literally, it's like, if you guys were kids and you came and see me, I think that's awesome. But at some point the kids get older, the families stop coming to see us, and now there's like a whole nother batch of kids. So the Rolling Stones have all the same people, the Who have all the same people, and it's cumulative. For us, it's like this constant ongoing thing of like, where are the new kids, and at some point you're like, hey, I can't keep doing that, I mean, because I was in the trip of every year I released an album for a while. I mean, 12 albums over oh geez, I guess it was 2012, the last major album came out. I think the two play albums, the soundtrack and the sing-along version came out, I think in 2000, maybe 16. That's a lot of albums in a short period of time. But it just doesn't make sense anymore, right? It really doesn't, and that's unfortunate because making albums is fun. But putting out an EP with some more songs and throwing them into the mediascape, into the Zoomiverse, it can't hurt, and it's fun. I like doing it. And if it opens up some doors, which everything you do does, no matter what you do, one thing really does lead to the next. I'm open for what happens next. I'd like to keep, I mean, the songs have gotten, better from the very first album. You can really hear the progression. They're getting better still, I think. So I can just keep doing what I'm doing and, get a new guitar because new guitars are cool.
Yeah.
Learning more
Definitely.
stuff is cool. John and I are actually starting a rock and roll band, right? So we're gonna go out and actually play in bars that don't allow
Oh
smoking.
wow, that's awesome.
Huh.
It is awesome. So we get to
That's
learn the stuff
cool.
that, real. I mean, we're to the point where we don't need to learn, Sheryl Crow stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we don't need to learn like what the hipsters are doing. We're gonna learn what we want to do and go out and do it, right? And we have the venues to do it and the will and the hope, and we're going to play songs in 7/4. We're going to do the complicated stuff, and then that'll bleed into the live band, because once we know it, we know it.
Right.
So that'll be real interesting to see what happens with like all this cool stuff we love growing up, and we're going to play now. And we have shows, whether they're shows for rock and roll band or they're shows for BRNF. It doesn't matter. We're just going to play. So I guess
Yeah,
to
exactly.
answer your question, the long winding answer distilled to this little thing
No
is
worries, no
we're going to keep
worries.
on playing.
Definitely.
That's awesome. So, working in the music industry, what are some of the biggest challenges you say you faced in that field?
The ones I faced really are the ones that, I mean, they're the ones that threw up the speed bumps. I mean, like for example, and I'm not griping. This is just the facts as I saw them. Like, so Sam, Frog Named Sam, that was big. I mean,
Mhm.
it got reviewed in People magazine, right? Sirius could not play it enough. They sent me real money, which enabled me to do more music, but they just wouldn't like really play the next thing. And that was frustrating. They wouldn't play really any more songs from that album. They played some, but not to the extent. And to me, that was confusing because people liked us so much, right? So, and then you get into like, okay, well, I'm going to try and do something that's even cooler, And in my mind, I did, but in their mind, they didn't need to play it anymore. And not only did they not really need to play it, which nobody ever explains to you, and you're like, okay, well, I'll get over that. But just the channel, the Sirius XM channel, which was really it was like the mothership for this stuff. I mean, they really were ahead of their time, seeing the Kindy thing. And that was cool. And it gave guys like me an outlet. But at some point, everybody got hip to the Kindy thing. Like, so Taylor Swift, all of a sudden they started playing Taylor Swift stuff. And where that,
Yeah.
their world was really, I mean, 90 to 100% indie guys like me, guys who weren't funded by record companies. That's what they would play. So it was an outlet that stopped. And at some point I talked to a guy named Kenny Curtis, and he literally explained it to me. He's like, here's the math. I'm like, okay, well, I appreciate you telling me. I do wish you'd play my songs, but that's how it goes. I mean, that's just how it goes. Also, the stuff with Spotify, I don't know if you guys are hip to Spotify. I mean, literally, they will play my song 40,000, 80,000 times, and I'd get
Wow.
$4.97. I mean, literally, they're playing the songs like 100, pick your tens of thousands of numbers. I have the documentation. And then you're like, oh, I get $5. Literally, I mean, what are you supposed to do with that? I mean,
Right.
honestly,
Yeah.
because I have to pay lawyers, I have to pay my guys if I'm going to make I mean, just the math, it just doesn't work. That's why you have
Right.
to want, when and I say this with all love in my heart, you have to want to do it, and I do, but getting paid is really helpful. It
Yeah,
just
Yeah.
lets you do the next
definitely,
thing.
of course.
Gasoline, new gear for the band. I mean,
Hmm.
um,
Um,
that
so
matters.
now what piece of advice would you give to anyone who wants to get into your field, with music and singing?
Oh, you mean in any music and singing,
Yeah, like
right?
what piece of advice would you want to give to anyone who wants to get into the field that you're in?
Again, you really have to want to. I mean, it's almost like you have to. Like Picasso, he had to. Van Gogh had to, and I am nowhere on that level at all. But the Beatles, they had to, right? I had to. So yeah, that's, I guess, my advice. You have to really want to, and
Definitely.
almost nothing has to matter other than that. I mean, yeah, try not to burn your family, really take care of your kids, and honestly,
Oh, yeah.
be the dad, be the mom, but you really have to do this. And then it's the coolest thing, and if you can find friends to do it with you who share your vision and your need to play, then yeah, have at it. I mean, the hardest
Yeah.
part about releasing the album, any of the albums, was once it was done. I mean, it's almost, recording it is hard, right? I mean, for me, it was really hard. And then all the decisions and the harmonies and the editing and the this and the that. But then you have this piece now that you think is like the best thing since sliced bread, and you have to get people to listen to it. You have to get people who review it. You have to get guys like you to talk to you, and almost like that's more work than, because like in the studio, you're in this cozy little place, and it's there's coffee and there's coffee cake, and you get to come back tomorrow and do it again. You get to go home with this little tape that you listen to endlessly. But once it's done, then you have to convince people that you have a vision. You have to convince them to, that you're special in some way, right? And that's kind of a thing. And you have to want that too. You have to want to do that too. I mean, when Emily's songs came out, I did my own publicity, and one of the best reviews I ever got was from this woman. She was doing like the parents' paper in Tennessee, somewhere down in Tennessee. And she wrote such a great review. And she said it was like the best album she'd heard all year. And that'll get me making another album, right? So
Oh yeah.
that, it's just the deal. If one person claps, you make a new album. It's a little
Right,
nuts.
yeah.
So you got to be a little nuts
Yeah,
in the best possible way, right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So turning the tables, what's the best piece of advice that you have received as a musician and a singer-songwriter?
Um, the best piece of advice that I had received, it probably sounds hokey, but it's really just an affirmation that I could do it. I mean, because literally, my mom could play the piano, but she was tone deaf, I think. My dad, surely tone deaf. Um, my grandfather, he, it was almost like you were never quite good enough, so just having people at some point along the way hearing that, oh yeah, no, it's legitimate, this is okay, you're good enough, or you're not you're not a fraud, right?
Right, yeah.
You're not torturing people is really what it comes down
Yeah.
to. You're legitimate, getting center stage at festivals, getting the real stage instead of the little kid stage. I mean, we got to play in Brooklyn, right? We got to play at the Children's Museum in Brooklyn.
Oh,
And the
wow.
only other people, we were the only kids band that played there, like kids band, a family band. There were no other family bands that played there. And this place was serious. I mean, they had a thing down there, and we got to go in there and play twice, so stuff like that, it's just makes you feel good and makes you believe in you're okay doing this stuff, so I mean,
Definitely.
actual advice, like, I just sort of, honestly, I just sort of went along my path. I mean, one of the guys I asked was, geez, he had a song in, he's a real famous guy. Oh, if you want to sing out, sing out. No, that, or is that Cat Stevens? He's on that level. Right? Anyway, I sent him an email because I'm like, how did you get your songs in these movies? You know, he's one of these guys. And he said, literally, they just found him, you know, and his song was used over and over again.
Wow.
And it's really helpful. You know, you get money for that, and you're enabled to pay your mortgage or buy a farm in, you know, Maryland or Virginia, wherever he did, right? So basically it's the relentlessness of your attitude and effort is really what it comes down to, period. I mean, unless you're lucky or you're like super uber talented, but I was not, you know. I'm relentless and I'm organized. It's superpowers.
Definitely. So, since we're close to wrapping up, are there any words you'd like to say to the people who have supported your work over the years?
Oh, honestly, I thank them with every piece of DNA in my being. I mean, they've let me, you know, basically do what I want legitimately, right? I go out, people come, you know, people follow us around. Kids told me that, you know, parents told me that before they went to bed at night, you know, this kid got to be me, the other kid got to be John, you know,
Oh,
the parent had to be, and the song that they chose to sing every night that they had to do before bedtime was a song from, I think it was on Grace's Bell, called you know, Chet's Fabulous Diner. Not a kid song at all, you know. It was just a song I had written that John and I were on, you know, knew and played and loved, and you know, just threw it on an album. I mean, like, you can't beat that these kids are like, you know, need to be you. You know, so I thank everybody. I mean, they've let me do what I want to do, and they're kind about it, right? So
absolutely. And I've been a fan of your work for a long time too. Probably, I'd say now around like 11 years, maybe.
that's a long time.
Yeah.
That's like about Love is a Superpower time, 2012.
Yeah, because the first songs that I think I heard were A Frog Named Sam and Chicken Soup Ballad.
Oh yeah, Chicken Soup Ballad. Yeah. That's a good one. So again, is that a kid's? I mean, that song, it just gave me, you know, heartache because I'm like, you know, in theory, stuff has to die in that song. They're in a pot of boiling water, you know. It's
Yeah.
like, do I really want to do this? I mean, that was like a little come to thought moment right there, you know. And ultimately we did because it's so much fun to play, you know.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Right.
thanks. Thank you.
You know, you're welcome, of
Our
course.
pleasure. Our pleasure.
Our
Of
pleasure.
course. So if people would like to connect with you or find out info about a frog named Sam and the Sally Salamander story, where can people find all that?
Oh yeah, you know, I like websites. We have a great website, so it's benrudnick.com. That's just you know, we do have the Facebook thing, but I'm a, you know, a little bit older than you guys, and social media gives me a headache after a while. So
Hmm.
I just don't
Same.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
don't put up a whole lot. I mean, to my mind, I get to post pictures of my dog on Hanging with Lucy, right? That's,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just it's I'm like one removed, right? I can, it doesn't have to be about me. I mean, I'd rather be folded into the band than, but people email me, I respond. If people contact me on Facebook, I respond. I think we're Ben Rudnick kids. I really don't tweet, but before a gig, I'll work for the shows. I post stuff because
Hmm.
that's my job, letting
Right.
people know what I'm supposed
Nice.
to do. But the
Nice.
website is pretty full blown. And there's a lot of stuff on YouTube, videos. We have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
At some point, we'll be playing, and John will say, "Hey, why don't we play?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, macaroni and cheese. I forgot. Yeah, we could do macaroni and cheese. Sure, okay." You know, there was a while there where I just couldn't remember the first line for a while. Like a summer. But I worked on that. It's all good now.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
So
good.
And link
And,
to the website will be in the description below for people to check
and
out.
excellent.
and your Facebook and everything else social media you have, and yeah,
Yes.
people can follow you and all that.
Hey guys, thanks for finding me. I really appreciate it. You all seem
Yes.
great. You really do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of
Thank
course.
Good
you.
luck with
Thank
what
you.
you do.
Appreciate it.
I'll be keeping an eye on you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So. So we have one last question, which I'm about to ask you. This is a question that we always ask in every guest. So,
Mhm.
Of course, this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of, or how would you define your own words, or how you define the word nostalgia?
Well, I'll tell you, nostalgia to me is my sister's here visiting for a week, and nostalgia to me is Richmond Hill in the 1960s. That's nostalgia. You know, my grandparents, you know, the pizza place next door, hearing Revolution on the radio, you know, the cars here in Laguna Beach, you know, because it's California, there's like all these cars that are old. I mean, that to me is, I mean, that's my time, right? So that's nostalgia for me. That's not nostalgia for my daughter. You know, it's just not.
Right.
So that's what I think of, cool cars and, you know, music. Like I was just actually, again, name dropping my buddy Jorma Kalkinen, right? He was in the Jefferson airplane. And when he was in the airplane, I was, you know, a kid, and I'd hear their music and it would literally scare me. Like literally scared. I was scared, frightened. And I emailed him that. I was like, man, because now I can. I mean, I don't email all the time, you know, but I could reach out to him, kind of thing, mentor type stuff. And I was like, and I just came across this video of them playing this song, Crown of Creation. And I remember how scared they used to make me. And now I know them, you know. It's like, so that's nostalgia for me. I mean, and in that particular case, I mean, I get to actually send an email because of technology to the guy who was scaring the bejesus out of me, you know, and he responded. You know, like, so it's like this ongoing living nostalgia kind of thing, you know. It's like I try and think of like what I'm doing today is like part of it, right? Because hey, live in the moment kind of deal, you know. It's like you get what you get and make the best of it, sort of thing. But that's a good question. I appreciate the question.
Thank you, and awesome words from you.
Yes, definitely. So, well, everyone, this brings another episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show to a close. We've absolutely enjoyed our time with Ben Rudnick.
Yes, thank you very much again, Ben. It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
My pleasure, guys.
Thank you so much, you know, for what you've done, being a part of our lives. You know, keep up great work and see what's next for you. And I'm glad, you know, we're friends and, you know, keep in touch.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
I'm here.
Exactly.
Come out and see the band. Give us a hug.
Absolutely. Oh,
we will.
Definitely. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Virtual hugs, everyone.
Yeah, yes, man. Absolutely. Well, we'll see you guys with more fun interviews, and remember to keep nostalgia alive.
Nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. Bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show interview. Be sure to follow Jake and the crew on social media and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.